How's it going, everyone? You're listening to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I'm a thru hiker, I'm a peak bagger, and this is the podcast where every single week I give the same introduction, and this is the podcast where every single week I chat with other thru hikers and other peak baggers and other hiking nerds like myself about their experiences on the trail. So this week's guest is a woman named Nancy Wind. She is the founder and owner of a business called Peaks and Poses. We're going to talk all about what exactly it is, but basically it's like a guiding service that also brings people out on the trail to do yoga, which is a very unique idea. This episode is not sponsored by Peaks and Poses. I did not receive money to have this conversation with Nancy, nor did she receive money to have this conversation with me. She pretty much just reached out a few months ago and was like, hey, can we set something up? And we were able to make it happen. Not only do we talk about Peaks and Poses and her business, but we spend a lot of the episode, pretty much the entire second half, talking about our differences in spirituality as it relates to hiking. Now, I've said this before on the show, I am not a very spiritual person. I kind of just like to go fucking hike. And Nancy is kind of the opposite, and I thought that could be like a cool conversation to kind of try to understand each other a little bit more, and so that's what we did. I was definitely in over my head for a lot of this stuff. I mean, that should be pretty obvious. But regardless, if you are a spiritual person like she is, hopefully you can have a laugh at me trying to wrap my head around some of this stuff. If you're not spiritual at all like me, then hopefully you'll find some of the things that Nancy shares to be interesting, or at least mildly entertaining. And yeah, I really think there's something for all sides of this conversation. Anyways, it was a great time. Nancy, thank you so much, and let's do it again soon. Everybody, go check out Trail Tales on Instagram. It's at Trail Tales Pod. Go like some stuff on my profile, or maybe even send me a DM with some praise or some shit talk. I haven't made a call for shit talk in a long time. So if you've listened to some of the like super old episodes, you've probably heard that. Let's bring that back maybe. You can also send me an email, trailtalespod@gmail.com. I'm always open to suggestions, whether that be guest suggestions, trail suggestions, you name it. Send me an email, trailtalespod@gmail.com. Go look up the show on Facebook too. I always forget to post these episodes on Facebook because I kind of forget that I have it. But yeah, I can't forget now because I'll just look like a huge jackass. Which, to be fair, I am a huge jackass. Anyways, yeah, Facebook, go do email, Instagram, all that stuff. If you want to help the show, because I know you're dying to help this stupid podcast, you can do that a couple of different ways. First of all, go leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts /iTunes /whatever your app is, Stitcher. I don't think you can leave reviews on Spotify, but shit, go try. Anyways, if you do that, I will read it out loud at the beginning of an episode introduction. Speaking of doing that, I am going to do just that. So this one is from CrazyDude80, which is a great username. It says, glad I found this show. Kyle keeps it real and talks in a relatable way. Great content and a wonderful host. Must listen. Thank you very much, Crazy Dude. This next one is from, okay, so their username is Kyle O'Grady, but I swear I did not write this review. It says, favorite pod, by far this is for sure, one of my favorite podcasts. Kyle does an awesome job keeping everything interesting and awesome. As a college student, I don't hike as nearly as I want to, so this gives me a good outlet to get my fix. You might want to check the grammar on that, but thanks for the review. Asks all his guests their favorite hiking story, but I'd love to hear Kyle's. Hopefully in the next pod we can hear some of that. Happy trials, homie. I think they meant happy trails. But I told a story in episode number 50 at the end of that when Baker Bocorny interviewed me for the 50th episode special, whatever. So yeah, go check out episode 50 to whoever wrote that review. I think that's pretty much going to do it, folks. Go check out the Patreon as well, patreon.com/trailtales. I really could use all the support I can get on there. Honestly, I have to renew the hosting for the next year in just a couple weeks here, so that would be really appreciated. And of course, I gotta plug my YouTube shit. Go check out youtube.com/c/Kyle Hates Hiking, I think is the right link, or just type in Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube, or just go through the link in the show notes. I've been posting videos on there. I'm about to hit 300 subscribers and just a little over a month, so yay for that. That's pretty cool, and I'm having a lot of fun with YouTube. So yeah, Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube, go check it out. Let's get into it with Nancy Wind, founder and owner of Peaks and Poses. Nancy Wind is on the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about the White Mountains and a bunch of other stuff today. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't had a White Mountain episode in a few episodes now, so that's going to be awesome. Nancy, how's it going?
Great, Kyle. How you doing?
I am doing pretty good. Looking forward to having a short week at work this week because Thanksgiving is coming up. Of course, by the time this comes out, it'll be over. But, that's how I'm doing. Thank you.
And our bellies may still be full.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for reaching out to me and wanting to make this happen. I am pretty stoked to talk today.
Thank you.
Why don't we start the way I like to start pretty much all of these episodes? Why don't you just kind of, actually, now that I say that, I actually forgot to do this for my last episode, but most of my episodes, why don't you just introduce yourself, say who you are, and give like your, I hate to say this, but your hiking resume, just kind of talk about like your outdoor experience.
Okay, sure. My name is Nancy Wind. I am a peak bagger and 58 years old. I'm a mom of 2 young men who have come into the Whites with me at different times. And I think a little bit of my hiking started when I was about 16 years old, and I was fortunate enough to go on an organized teen tour across the United States and got to go into some of the national parks. And something just kind of hit home with me. It was 6 weeks of camping as well, and I just loved being outside and moving around and just seeing what was out there. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward many, many years, when I was married, my husband at the time also loved to hike, and we started hiking together, going up to Baxter State Park and doing some short hikes around Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And we had our kids, and we were going to be like the hiking family. While my marriage ended, the love for the mountains just continued, and my kids continued to hike with me, and I continued to hike as much as I can. It was challenging being a single mom and finding the time to be with adult friends. But my younger son, when he turned 18 and was kind of heading off to college, I was thinking, God, this is just something that I would love to do more of, and meet other people who also really like to hike. I didn't really have that many friends that really like to do it. They were sort of busy with their spouses and families. So I joined a meetup group, the New England Over 40 meetup group. And I went on a hike to Welch Dickey, and then up to, what's that hike? Up near Conway with the fire tower. It will come to me. And then I just started meeting some people, and I just got hooked. I was really kind of like unleashed at the moment. Mm-hmm. It was back in 2012, 2013. And then I started hearing people talk about the 48. And while I had been up in the Whites with some other friends doing Franconia Ridge Trail like numerous times, mm-hmm. I didn't realize the breadth of the 48 and how many other mountains there were. And somebody one time asked me what my goal was when I joined the meetup, and I just said I didn't really have a goal except to just meet people and find other people like me who just wanted to spend time in the mountains. And I would say maybe a half a year later, I sort of caught the bug of the 48. And I had completed those in about just over a year, maybe about like 14 months, doing all those, and even some like multiple times, because some other friends were just like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go do, Moosilauke, or come do the Wildcats with me. So, yeah. And then I found out about the New England 67 and started to explore Vermont and Maine. And it took about another year to complete those. Did a couple of 14ers out in Colorado. And in 2018, hiked part of the JMT. We came in Bishop Pass and went down on the JMT. We came out on Kearsarge Pass. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
I'm not. No, I've never been out there before.
Oh, you got to go out there.
I would. Oh, shit. My dog just knocked over my guitar. Dude, I am so sorry. That is hilarious. How was that,
Wish I could
buddy?
have seen that.
I wish I had it on video. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to kind of interrupt you there.
Okay.
When did Peaks and Poses kind of come into all this?
Yeah, so I founded Peaks and Poses. Actually, the conception of my trail yoga business was on Canning Cliffs in 2013, that summer. We were out on the cliffs and somebody wanted to take a picture of us. And so just a group of women all kind of came together and held hands, and we did tree pose, Vrksasana. And I was like, wow, this is really kind of cool. We're like looking over Franconia Ridge, looking down 93. And I was like, this would be really fun to just start like taking people out into the mountains and doing some yoga out there. And so I kind of like mulled around, thought, and kept hiking. And then the following year, I really was like, I'm going to do this. And I was on a intro backpacking trip into 13 Falls campground. And wish I had a video of me then. I came apparently with a condo tent. I had no idea what kind of tent you were supposed to bring on any of these backpacking trips. Long story short, I learned a lot about backpacking, and I was with a few people that I just met, and I was kind of telling them what my idea was, and they were like, yeah, you got to do that. This just sounds so fun, and I bet a lot of people will want to do it. I was like, well, I really need help with a name. And so we had about an 8-mile hike out the next day, and we just started throwing around names of this potential trail yoga business, and somebody came up with Peaks and Poses. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. That's the name of my business. And I started taking people out on hikes around Boston. And in my hometown at the time was Wayland, Massachusetts.
There's hikes around Boston? Wait a minute.
Yeah, there's the Blue Hills.
Actually, I guess I have heard about the Blue Hills before.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
It's not, there's no like backpacking though, right? It's just kind of like short, like day hikes kind of?
You know what? The AMC, I think, has some cabins or a shelter on
Interesting.
Ponkapawag Lake, if I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, and I'm not sure. You may not be able to.
I'm sure there's I have a lot of listeners from the Boston area, so if anybody listening to this knows, I'd definitely love to hear about it. Because I have heard about the Blue Hills before. I've watched like some videos way back in the day, and it is kind of cool how there's like a little, like, I don't know, like little section of backcountry that close to, you know, one of the biggest cities in the Northeast. So I don't know, it's pretty cool.
It is pretty incredible. And before I was winter hiking, I would just start in the Blue Hills in the spring and just sort of like get my legs, you know, sort of in gear for like the summer and the fall. And there's a nice traverse that you can do. And it's actually fairly challenging. I've done it a couple of times. And you'd be surprised. It's just like up and down, fairly rocky, some short, steep sections. So it sort of can mirror the whites in some parts of it. And then, you know, a lot of it's just flat and really expansive.
Yeah,
but you get a nice view. I won't tell you what you can see when you get to the top of Blue Hill. I'll keep it a surprise. And I think it's got the oldest running weather observatory in the nation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool up there. Yeah, so that's kind of how Peaks and Poses started. And then, you know, it's probably out of my own boredom of going to the Blue Hills and places locally. And that I was like, you know, I think it's time to go up to like New Hampshire and get some people out of the state And so started bringing people up north to, just some day hiking, Tecumseh. And then actually quickly it turned into some overnight retreats because I had a friend who proposed to be my chef if I was to do some overnight retreats. And I thought that would be really cool. And so I had already met Serena at the Notch Hostel and kind of had a relationship with her. And she was always open to, whenever you want to come up here or any way I could help you, just feel free to come on up. And so I started booking some overnight retreats at the Notch Hostel. And then I felt like that, there's so much more than just day hiking. So I started thinking about bringing some people into, just some bigger mountains and introduce them to the AMC huts and giving some people just some hut experience.
So how much of your business is like just guiding like the actual hikes versus doing the yoga thing? Because I do not know anything about this, and I've never heard of this anyways, at least. So like I'm just kind of curious like how that all works. Like, are most of the people that you're taking out just looking for like guided hikes, or are they looking to actually do the yoga thing?
That's a great question. And I think that my idea of what my business was going to be when I first started has really evolved in a good way. And I think it's because I've been listening to the people that have wanted to come join me. And so in the beginning, I thought it was going to be a lot of yoga. Mm-hmm. And what I do is we integrate it into the hike. So we don't bring any yoga mats with us. We just use what's around. So if there's trees around, we may hold on to a tree and do sort of a modified downward dog. We get onto some rocks. For different poses, we might just do a flow in the middle of Welch Dickey. It's just kind of fun. It's sort of, for me, being intuitive about the space around me and how it could lend itself to some quieting down of the mind, quieting down of the body, and allowing people to just take off their backpacks and just connect a little bit deeper to what's around them in a different way, instead of just the repetitive movement of just, one foot in front of the other.
Right. How many of the people that are coming out to do the yoga are like, I don't know, are people that have done yoga before versus people that are like literally doing it for the first time? I'm just kind of curious to find out about the kind of people that are
It's probably 60 to 75% people have done some yoga before.
But there's still it's not like it's uncommon for people that have never done it to go out with you.
Right. And I try to, let people know that it's really for everyone. It's really about getting outside and making that connection to being outdoors. And so there's still an emphasis on yoga. Like, we were up at Lakes of the Clouds hut back in September, and wasn't ideal weather to be outside. So it was quiet in the hut in the afternoon. And so we just started doing yoga right in the dining hall. And it was really awesome because there were people that were just not there with me, but there with their friends or whomever. And then they just joined us.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. That was awesome.
I'm not gonna lie, if I stumbled into Lake of the Clouds hut on my thru hike and there was like a huge group of people doing yoga in there, I probably would have been super freaked out. I would have been like, okay, I'm gonna keep hiking. That's so funny though.
Yeah. So we always start with a 15-minute yoga, like in the parking lot, just to really kind of warm up all of our joints. We do some introductions of people, and then it's kind of up to me and and the actual trail of where we can stop and pull over and do some yoga.
Have you ever heard of anybody else that runs like a business that does the same thing? Not necessarily just like in New England, but just anywhere at all that does like a guiding like yoga thing like this?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you brought that up, because I was up on Mount Pemi October of last year. And that particular October was really warm. And I had just made some new tank tops. And we were all wearing our Peaks and Poses tank tops. And it was quite crowded up there, but there was some woman that came up to the group and said, "Who's in charge of this operation over here?" And I said, I introduced myself. And her name is Jana, and she also does hers is sup yoga, which is stand-up paddleboard. So she's integrating yoga and stand-up paddleboard.
What? Oh my God, that's
and hiking.
So funny. Wow.
Yeah, and we have like a mutual client. And so it was just kind of neat to meet somebody else. Super, we follow each other now on Instagram and Facebook and see, what each other's up to and things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, this is so fascinating to me because I have never done yoga before, maybe in like gym class when I was in high school, but I pretty much just like fucked around with my friends the whole time and didn't take it seriously. And I know a lot of people love yoga. I'm not going to lie. I personally have never really understood like the appeal. To me, it seems kind of goofy, but like I know people love it. Like I know there's benefits. So I'm not trying to be like a dick about it to everybody who does yoga that listens to this, but I just think it's like so like fat. Like I'm just trying to imagine like stumbling upon like a group of people like doing yoga while on like balls to the walls, like in the middle of like a 20-mile day or something like that. Like I just find that so funny. I guess this is such a cheap question, but has anybody like ever had like a funny or like interesting reaction to like kind of coming across you guys doing your thing like in the middle of the woods?
Not really.
That's good.
You probably want like a great response, but you know what? I think people are just respectful, and they might just say, "Oh, excuse me," and kind of walk by. Mm-hmm. We haven't had anybody outside just stop and join us, but I think that would be really kind of cool.
I feel like it might happen eventually. Like if it happened in the hut, then
yeah, right.
Who knows? When you guys are like finding spots on the trail to actually, I guess I should first of all, how many people like. I'm sure it varies, but like usually how many people are you leading out there? Like how many in your group?
I try to keep it under 12.
Okay. But I mean, even say, let's say like 8 or 10 people, like that's
10.
A decent sized group. Like where do you usually stop to like find the space in the woods to like do this kind of thing? Cause like that's a decent amount of people. You're all going to need like your own like space to do the stretches or whatever, not stretches, do your poses or whatever it is. And so like, I'm just kind of curious because just thinking about it, like there's not that many times where I'll come across a spot, except for maybe like a campsite or a shelter or something that has enough like space to do that, Yeah,
it's really quite true. That's why Welch Dickey is a really good mountain. Mount Pemi is a great mountain for that. We, in October, went and hiked Hedgehog Mountain. It's on 52 with a view. Mm-hmm. We kind of parked in the wrong parking lot, but it actually worked out to our advantage because we followed some cross-country ski trails for a little bit, and then we opened up into this like just this vastness of land. It was like a meadow with, I think Whiteface and Passaconaway, like 2 hour west, and maybe, not sure if we could see Chicor at that point, but it was just this like big open field. It was like crazy because you don't really get that openness in the Whites. And so we hung out there for maybe 15 minutes and did a little practice there. So these are sort of like short flows, I would say, you know, which for yoga flow would be like one pose into another, as opposed to like rolling out your mat and having like a 1 hour class.
Okay.
Because sometimes you've got the weather to deal with as well.
Yeah, really. That's like a
yeah.
whole... How have you ever had any like interesting experiences doing it? Like, as far as weather goes, have you ever been like, I don't know, in the middle of like a flow or whatever they're called, and then like, just been like crushed by a storm or something like that?
Not in the middle, but last year we were, I can't remember where we were hiking, and I think the lot was full or something. So we ended up going into Greeley Pond, but it was like a really kind of drizzly day. And, this was an overnight. So I tell people what to pack, and I'm always telling them to bring a rain jacket, and if you got rain pants. Well, I'd say 8 of the 10 people brought ponchos. And one woman's poncho was like a red and white checked poncho. It looked like a picnic table. It was so funny. And I have these great pictures of us. I wonder if it's still on my website. I'll have to go. If not, I'm going to email it to you. And they're all in like this reverse warrior pose right at Greeley Pond, and they're all in their ponchos.
That's funny.
It's just kind of funny. It was not like your typical, yoga studio look. But they were troopers. So that day it was a little wet. We've just been, I have to say, really fortunate with the weather in terms of the weather gods have been with us and have been able to invite us out when it's just really, can't say always warm, but no storms.
Would that almost like be kind of fun, like an extra challenge to like try to, I don't even know how to phrase this, but like to like kind of stay focused, I guess, while you're like doing it. If like the weather was not like, I mean, obviously if there's like a huge storm, you're probably not going to want to do it. You want to seek shelter, but like, I don't know. I feel like that might just make it like even harder to like focus or whatever. And that could be kind of interesting and be kind of a good practice. I don't know. Have you found anything? Has that ever happened? Anything like that?
Yeah, not really. The reason why we ended up in the hut was we were supposed to go up to Monroe for flags on the 48, and the wind was whipping. It was, I don't know, probably 30, 40 mile per hour winds up there, but it was also very wet. And the people that came on that hike were fairly new to hiking at that elevation. So they kind of chose to stay in the hut and not go up to Monroe that day. And I had to listen to them because I didn't really want to be responsible for 10 people.
Yeah.
Slipping and sliding. But that could have been kind of cool, although it probably would have been way too windy. We did a little snowshoeing, some snowshoe yoga.
Oh, there you go.
That's definitely a lot more challenging, but I'm gonna work on that this year because I think there are some really good places that you could do that. Like, just even outside the Highland Center in their field.
Yeah, it's not like you have to go that far out every single time either.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I think it's like especially in the winter, just to experience the elements of the season. I love winter hiking. I mean, I feel like I'm almost addicted to it right now because it's so peaceful and so quiet. And you get that nice day with the sun, just shining on you and making the snow glisten. And, I've been hiking up Carrigan and I've like taken off, every layer I had until I was in a tank top. And, it's January.
Damn. And, do you prefer winter over summer?
In some ways, yeah, in some ways. I tend to, I think the longer I've been hiking, the more quiet I want it to be out there. And so seeing a lot of people, like I remember hiking up Franconia, Falling Waters with a group in June, and it was like a freeway.
Yeah, it can be it's just pretty crowded.
It's too crowded. It's not really that much fun. I mean, I want people to be out there and enjoy the whites, just like I do, but that's just too many people for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, are you a winter hiker?
Not really, honestly. I mean, I have like a couple times, never in the whites, but I'm not really, honestly, and I kind of want to get into it. So like that's kind of why I wanted to ask about it, is the fact that people prefer it over summer, because I've had other people say that on the show as well. Like kind of like goes against everything that I've experienced. So I just think that's so fascinating.
The beauty of the winter is that the snow just lays down this gorgeous white carpet. And so you're not hiking over all those roots and rocks
That's
that
fair,
we're challenged by. And so in some ways it's almost easier.
Interesting, yeah. I'd like to try it. I do ski too, so I'm like often doing that during the winter, so I think that has something to do with it. But I actually didn't buy a ski pass this year, partially because I'm resting an injury, partially because maybe towards the end of the winter I might give it another go. I don't know. I mean, I've done a little bit. It's not like I've never done it at all before. I've done, some of the mountains around here, Mansfield and Camel's Hump. I've done both those in the winter a couple times, and I guess I did Cabot in December, early December. I'm not sure when like the official like cutoff for winter is. I think it might have been before that. I'm not really sure, but so I've done a little bit, but I don't know. Based on what I have done in the winter, I've always preferred summer for some reason, but I don't know. Like maybe I just need to give it another go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some great mountains, and we take down our sleds. So if you can find the right trail to go down on your sled, then you just like flying down.
You haul a sled up there? Wait a minute.
Oh yeah, we have these sleds called American Missile.
I'm gonna have to Google this.
Yeah, and they're plastic. They have a little seat and they have handles, and so you can clip them onto your backpacks fairly easily. And then, and that's the way we go down. Down Moosilauke and Kearsarge. That's the mountain I was thinking of over in Conway. That was my first butt sled, we call it. Oh my God. It was so much fun. It was a blast. I can't remember the last time I laughed that hard.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Damn. So fun.
Bringing out like the little kid in every
absolutely.
Hiker sledding down the mountain. That does sound pretty fun, damn.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you'd like
really
run into
good...
somebody. Like if you're just freaking flying down the trail, you go around a corner. Damn, you gotta be a little bit careful, I guess.
We've had some wipeouts. And it's a really good workout for your core because you got to lift your legs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
How many of the 48 did you do during the winter?
So it's funny, I was just working on my list and sort of planning out my winter because I have 10 left. So I've done 38 winter. Actually, some of them I've probably done twice. So I've got some big ones left, and I'd like to finish them this year because I just don't want to think about them anymore.
Have you done the ones like the presidentials and the far above tree line ones yet?
Yeah, some of them. I've done Madison. I did Washington just this past year on the last day of winter.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it was a bluebird day. Oh my God.
What's the cutoff for
freaking gorgeous
the winter like season or whatever?
I think it's March 20th.
March 20th
is the last day of winter.
And then when does it start technically?
December 20th.
December 20th. So I guess when I did Cabot, I would have technically still been fall, although there was snow and I needed microspecs, so it felt more like winter than it did fall. But shit,
I know, and I've done a few of those myself. In fact, a bunch of my friends and I, we did like both Cabot and Passaconaway, like March 21st or March 22nd, and it was total winter conditions. And now we're like kicking ourselves. And we're like, what? Like, who planned that one? Like, we just weren't thinking at that time, this winter list. And I was like, oh man, we're so fucking dumb.
Where do you drive up from again when you're going to the Whites?
So I live outside of Boston. I live west. I just moved into a town called Hopkinton, which is known for the start of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, nice.
Other than that, I'm not sure if it's known for anything. Except having a lot of open space.
How far of a drive up to say, I don't know, Lincoln, New Hampshire, would it be then for you?
Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours.
So that's about what it is for me over here in Burlington too. When you
you're in
go up
Burlington,
during the
right?
winter, do you usually like stay at the Notch hostel or like stay like have some sort of lodging, or do you usually just make day trips?
I've mostly done day trips, but I
That's
just booked some nights at the Notch for this year.
see, that's just like so intense. Like I know a lot of people do that, and I have done it before, but I think another reason why I generally don't like the winter hiking as much is because I like to go up the night before and then like camp somewhere and then hike the next day, because honestly I just don't like to get up early. And so, and obviously in the winter you gotta be even more careful about that because less daylight.
You don't like getting up at 4:20?
No, I don't. I actually hate, and I have done it before, and that's how I know I don't like it. So I would like to go over like the night before, and then I would camp, and then hike early the next morning, and then make the drive back the night, like, you know, at the end of the day or whatever. And so, so I'm just always curious to hear how people do that, because camping, I know people do it, and some guys listening to this that's like, Kyle, you suck. Like, winter camping is so much fun, but like, I'm definitely not gonna be camping when it's negative 10 degrees outside. So I don't know. I'm always just curious to hear how people kind of deal with that.
I know. And, you know, I just started doing it with my meetup group, and now my friends and I do it. And I have other people that don't hike, and I mean, they think I'm a nut. They think I'm just nuts. Like, you're driving 2.5 hours, you're hiking all day, and then you're going out and having something to eat afterwards, and maybe a beer or something to drink, and then you're coming home the same day. And I'm like, absolutely, that's just what we do. And, you know, I guess it is nuts. I don't mind getting up early though. I'm usually up by 5.
Ouch.
4:20 is, yeah, I know, but I really do love it. There is actually, in terms of spirituality, if you think about like some of the Eastern religions, and it's a very sacred time of the day. Is an actual name. It's called Brahma Muhurta. And it's when a lot of people come out to pray. And so when you're up that early, like, I do feel it. It's like it's just kind of cool to be up when you know that most of the people are not awake. And even though they're probably warm and tucked into bed, I don't know. There's something about just being like
nocturnal.
Yeah.
Was there a specific time that you were talking about there, or just like being up early, like the praying thing?
Just being up early. I mean, the prayer, that is, you can look that up. Like, that's actually a special, you know, time of the morning. It's right before the sunrise.
Okay.
People can like really deeply connect to the universe.
Interesting.
Through prayer, through meditation, through journaling, like however you would choose to be present.
See, this is why you're such a good guest to have on, Nancy, is because there's such a huge contrast between us here. Like obviously, you know, excuse me. Obviously, you know, I was gonna get into the spiritual stuff at some point here, and I just feel like we have such different perspectives. I mean, I'm like a 23-year-old dude.
Yeah.
You know, you said you were a 58-year-old woman. Like, there's just a big contrast here. I am very much a surface level person. I've said this on the show before. Like, I've also said this before too, but like, I'll often ask people, at least when it comes to like through hikes, like, oh, why did you go hike the Appalachian Trail or whatever? And a lot of the time people will either give me like a super in-depth answer. They'll be like, oh, well, this happened in my life, and like I was doing it for this like sort of spiritual or emotional benefit. And then other times people will just be like, yeah, I just like to fucking hike. And I'm definitely in that second camp there. Like, I'm definitely just like like, fuck it. Like, let's go hike today. Like, I just like, you know, challenging myself or whatever. So you come from a very different perspective here, and I kind of want to get into this because the contrast is so good here, and maybe you can help me kind of understand this a little bit more, because again, like, with all due respect, like I just don't like get the whole like spiritual like kind of yoga thing, and so we're gonna try to go into this a little bit. So when you first started hiking, I know you had some experiences when you were younger and stuff like that. Was it always a spiritual thing, like right from the start? for you, or did that kind of like develop over time as you did more miles and had more experiences?
I think it's something that's developing. So I think that I was probably like you, like, hey, let's just go fucking hike. And, like, I think that I'm somebody, though, that has to move. And I know, like, I can tell, like, I'm long overdue to be out in the mountains. And that's just from, like, somebody who likes to move, but I think it's just the way I feel when I'm out there. So I think it's something that's developed over the last number of years. So I can totally relate to where you are. And I think a lot of it is actually been coming from my learner of Ayurveda, which is the kind of the holistic medical system of India. And it's about aligning with the rhythms of the day and being in the flow of the day and the energies of the day. I know, right?
It's all just like right over my head.
Yeah, I have to look that up. It's fascinating. And so and this is for me probably all happening in the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So it's still fairly new, and I'm really a learner of it, but I'm really interested in that alignment of my own mind and body with the cycles of the day and the circadian rhythms. So
it sounds like you, like your personal life, outside of hiking as well, the spirituality has been developing over the past number of years as well. It wasn't always there from a young age either.
Right.
Okay, interesting. And so I'm just kind of curious to know what role hiking, if any, has played in that like spiritual development then.
Well, there's a quote that I just absolutely love. It's from John Burroughs, and he says, I go out into nature to soothe my soul and to put my senses back in order. Something along those lines. I may have misquoted him.
That's okay.
But for me, it's like just being outside allows my brain, it gives my brain like an expansiveness that then feeds me into my soul, into my creativity, and the moving along with it puts me in like rhythm as well. I don't get the same feeling when I'm sitting inside my home or in a building. Like, I love my home, I love it, but there's something about connecting with the earth and putting your feet on the ground and, just allowing your eyes to just sort of see what's in front of you and notice and take the time to notice what's out there. I don't know. It's just starting to bring a greater connection to like the entire universe for me.
Interesting. Because again, I wasn't sure if it was like how intertwined your spirituality was to hiking specifically, or being outside, being in the mountains or whatever. But it sounds like there is a pretty big relationship there, huh?
Yeah, and I think it's probably also new because like the regularity of my hiking is also so new, in terms of just like maybe the last 6 or 7 years.
Interesting.
So I think it's just kind of like they're both kind of developing simultaneously, but with a lot of integration and synergy between the two. Like on Yom Kippur, like I was raised Jewish, but I really don't really follow any religion. But on Yom Kippur, I went into the mountains, and like for me, like the mountains are my temple. Like that's where I find contentment and peace, with myself. And like you kind of have to have that if you want to put that energy out into the world and the relationships with the people that you're having. It's hard to have that sort of contentment with others, like if you don't really feel it within yourself.
Now,
that makes sense.
Kind of. Again, this is all like it's like a foreign language to me, pretty much.
Yeah.
Foreign concept, but
it's cool. You're posing some good questions for me too to really stop and think about it.
Yeah, and at first when you kind of contacted me, I wasn't really sure, if it was going to work to do an episode, because my initial thought was like, okay, I am not a spiritual person. I hate to say it, but like the stuff, it's kind of goofy to me. Like I've just never put any thought into it. Like I just don't take it seriously at all. And like I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but that's just kind of the truth. Like that's where I'm coming from. So initially I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. But then after we had that initial conversation, I was like, okay, I do think there's something here, because I've said the word contrast so many times here, but like that contrast is so big that I think it's worth exploring. And I don't know how do I phrase this? What advice would you give to somebody like me, or even, doesn't even have to be like advice, but just like, what would you say to someone like me who just straight up doesn't understand this stuff? What would you say to them to try to maybe not like, put themselves in your shoes, but like at least kind of wrap their head around, having such a spiritual connection to the outdoors and to, hiking specifically? I know that there's a lot there that I probably didn't phrase that super well, but I'll let you take a swing.
I think everybody has sort of their own definition of even what like spirituality means to them. And so I would just say like just take notice and be aware. And like even of your own self, like the day before you're hiking or the morning of your hiking, like check in with yourself. Like, what do you feel? Like, what's your energy level? What's your, what's your inner self feeling? And then like, just be outside and stop and take notice. Like, be aware. Like, I think that's what my yoga practice has offered me, is to, they always say like, be in the present moment. And so like, to me, that's like a spiritual practice. It could be that simple. Interesting.
So Nancy, one thing that just popped into my head. So I have tried before I shouldn't say I've tried. I'm going to say it again. I have like stopped before, like plenty of times on hikes, and tried to kind of take everything in, right? So I'll come to some sort of view, or often it's even just in the middle of the woods, like not any particular like waypoint that, someone would stop at, even if I'm just in the middle of the woods, and I'll try to just kind of take everything in like that. And for me, what usually ends up happening is I'm so focused on the things around me that I feel like I can't even like just focus in on one particular thing, right? I'm just like kind of trying to take all of this in, and it is satisfying. Like, I'm not saying like I'm just completely blocking everything out, but it sounds like to me those moments have a little bit more weight for you. And so I'm just curious, when you do kind of pause like that, are you really channeling everything that's around you, or are you more kind of looking like internally and kind of trying to channel like what you're feeling exactly, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's more like what I'm feeling. And a lot of it is just breath work, it's just like just noticing that I'm breathing, noticing like where my feet are. And then just a combination of like, look what's around, just stop. That's the best part of the summer or the fall, is that you could just sit on top of a mountain for a long time and just look out and what's around, and just show just even gratitude for what's there. That's a spiritual moment for me.
Interesting. And again, I'm just so like torn, because I guess I'm just out of practice, but I have a hard time doing both the internal kind of I don't even know what to call it, and also like taking in the things around me. It's like I'm too like hyper focused on like, oh my god, like this is such like a nice like moment, and like I need to like take this in and cherish this, that I feel like I don't actually end up doing that, you know?
Doing that. I wonder what gets in your way.
I'm not sure. I feel like it's almost just like the fact that I'm, and this would happen especially a lot on my AT through hike. I would constantly try to remind myself like how fortunate I was to be doing this and like how lucky I was. And I feel like sometimes, especially when I was like kind of in grind mode, like when I was maybe having like a tough stretch or whatever, I would like stop and try to be like, okay, I'm literally like hiking the Appalachian Trail. Like I'm not working right now. I'm like doing this amazing thing that so many people want to do. I should be like soaking this in and appreciating this. And it was almost like kind of like pressuring myself to do that, like made me not able to do that, you know, if that makes sense. Have you ever, maybe earlier on, have you ever experienced that before, or have like, I don't know, any of your clients, the people you take out, have they ever like mentioned anything like that? Do you have any sort of words of wisdom about that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny because like, it's not like you would see me and I'm like, you know, this spiritual being, you know, I'm just sort of like trying, you know, I'm just trying to like be grateful, show gratitude, connect, like just to be present. You know, sometimes I take people out and, you know, there's the people that just want to go straight up to the top, you know, like the type A personality. And then there's like the slow pokes. And I always tell people like, I'm going to sweep. And I kind of like actually enjoy it. When I bring a group out, cause I'm at the end, and I think I can also tend to be like the type A and just go straight up sometimes. So I think there's always a balance between the two. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
I feel like there's really no way to actually answer that. I don't know. I'm just trying to kind of.
I think it's just to be open, you know. And again, I do feel like I've been practicing yoga for about 18 years now. So for me, a lot of times my yoga practice isn't the actual physical practice of laying, you know, putting down my mat and doing actual physical poses, but there are 7 other limbs of yoga and a lot of, you know, breath work and, you know, how you take care of yourself and how you take care of others and your own self-inquiry and self-study and meditation. Like that's all part of yoga as well. And so I feel like for me, my yoga is yoga off the mat, and how I can take myself as a human and be in the world, and you know, what kind of relationships do I have with people? What kind of relationships do I have with nature? You know, for me, I could take 20 people into the mountains if I wanted to, but you know, I care for the forest, and you know, that's why I've tried to keep my hikes small and be respectful and try to teach people, you know, leave no trace. And I'm somebody who will pick up garbage on the trail and just try to make the place, you know, better than when I first entered. And so I try to share all of those kinds of, you know, you can call them rules or just kindness. And to me, that's yoga, you know, and that's a spiritual practice as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that before in my life. That's
you know, when we used to go camping with my kids, you know, we used to do a lot of car camping. And one rule we always had at our campsite was to always leave the campsite cleaner than when you found it. And we go out, you know, all around us and pick up all the garbage, and just be grateful. I mean, it can be that simple.
Interesting. I'm going to have to think about these things a little bit more. Maybe not to the same level you and lots of other people have, but I don't know. And because I feel like here I am saying like I'm not spiritual at all. I feel like it doesn't even matter. Like if you're this drawn to something like I am to hiking, there's got to be some sort of spiritual connection there, even if it's not quite as thought out as, you know, someone like yourself's connection might be. It's like, obviously I've done a lot of it. Like I'm super drawn to it. It's a part of who I am. It's part of my identity. So there's I don't know. There's got to be something there. Maybe I need to think about these things a little bit more.
Yeah. And you know, like I would agree. I bet it's there. You just don't maybe know in what form or how to articulate it, or
maybe this is how I articulate it, by making podcasts and doing videos and other shit like that. Wow.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, you know, when I was 23, I don't even think I want to talk about some of the stuff that I was doing, because I don't know who's going to be listening.
Oh boy.
So I think it's, you know, there's growth.
Definitely.
There's always, and it's a practice, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that it's something that, you know, something that's done daily can grow in intensity and can grow deeper.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to have to start to think about these things, or I'm going to at least try to think about these things, and maybe I will succeed. Maybe I will not, but it's worth a shot. I've one question that kind of popped into my head. I actually meant to ask this earlier when we were talking about peaks and poses. When you plan your hikes, do you usually go to like a spot that you've been before, like a spot that you know you can like set up and do your thing at? Or do you often go on hikes that you've like never been on before?
Good question. I think there's been a little bit of both.
Okay.
Most of them I have been on before. And I think that is like for me just to feel confident and to know that I've been there before and I know how to get there. I know how to get us back. It's mostly like the guiding part. But this summer we went out to Colorado. And while I've been out in the Boulder area, there were a couple of hikes that I had not done before. And then this summer we're going out to Glacier National Park.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Have you been there?
I have. That's like the only place on the, out west, I guess, not on the coast, but only place out west that I've ever been and hiked in before.
That's awesome. So maybe I can pick your brain a little bit, because
I wasn't there like for a super long time, and it was only day hikes, so I didn't backpack. We car camped and did day hikes, but it is amazing, definitely. I can tell you some places to avoid, because a lot of the stuff that we did was like super popular and a lot of people. So if you're looking to like kind of get away from people, I can tell you where not to go. But
yeah, that would be great, because we'll be there 5 days and we'll be just day hiking. And I haven't been there, so any help that I could get in the planning of it would be really helpful.
Amazing. It's amazing. Are you like going out with clients that are going to be like doing the yoga stuff?
Yeah,
that's
I rented
awesome.
a big house.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This will be my second really like outdoor adventure hiking yoga retreat outside of New England.
Damn, that's incredible.
Yeah,
well,
it's a great way to travel.
Definitely. You'll have to let me know how that goes. Like I'm sure you guys will have a really good time. What time of year are you going again?
July.
Okay, so middle of the summer. Yeah, that's good. Obviously, that's really cool. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go there. It's been on my bucket list, and people say go now because the glaciers are melting. So go while there's still a few left.
We're kind of getting towards the end of the episode here, Nancy. Now, I failed at doing something, which I have been doing a lot of this lately. I know you've listened to other episodes, so maybe you have the story thing. Do you know where I'm going here?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so I everybody listening, I've been like dropping the ball lately. I keep forgetting to freaking remind people to have stories for the end of the episode. So I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, kind of not, because at least you've listened to other episodes before. But do you have a story to share?
I have a great story that I think will really help wrap up our conversation that we had today.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience, Kyle. I took a group of people up to Mizpah Hut for an overnight. This was in September of 2018. and I think there were 12 of us, and I would say at least 8 were really new to hiking and new to the White Mountains and to the huts. It was like, I met one woman and she invited all of her friends, and they were awesome. And we got up to Mizpah Hut and we dropped all of our stuff off there. And then we went over to Pierce. And 2 people from Pierce went over to Eisenhower, which I tend not to let people go off on their own, but I trusted these 2 people. And we said, we'll meet you back at the hut for dinner. So we started to hike back towards the hut. And I don't know if you know, there's like just kind of an area in between where it was just all open rock. And I invited everybody to come sit down so we could do a little meditation. It was just a gorgeous day. And it was, probably like around 4:00 in the afternoon. And so we all just sat down and I led them through, maybe just a 5-minute meditation, just to sort of like bring people to center and to connect with their breath. And after the meditation, I invited everybody to chant the sound of Om, which is sort of the universal sound. It's made up of 3 sounds, A, U, M. I wonder if you've ever chanted those sounds before.
I don't think I ever have, but I've heard other people do it.
It's very common to either open a yoga practice or to end a yoga practice with the sound of Om. And it's just a beautiful way to bring everybody together. And so we chanted the sound of Om, and all of a sudden, we heard the mountains chant the sound back to us. And I was not the only one that heard that, because when we were done, I didn't say anything. So there was like this amazing echo, but I don't think it was an echo. And everybody was freaked out by it. They were like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? The mountains are oming to us. Oh my God. It was so cool. And I have tried it in other places, and we have not gotten the same sound back to us. We've got nothing.
Have you ever tried it again in that same spot?
I have not. I haven't been back there. I think it's worth going back to that spot and trying it and just see, or not, and just taking that as a sign or a signal, or just a moment of really kind of like a glorious moment in the mountains where it's like the mountains were just kind of saying like, whatever you wanted them to say. I don't even want to put words to it because I think it's something that everybody really felt inside of them. It was really just like, whoa.
I know you said some other people heard it. Did the entire group hear it? Were there some people
Everybody in the group heard it.
Everybody heard it? Wow, that's incredible.
Everybody heard it and everybody felt it.
Interesting.
Because it was almost like, it was just so unexpected, and that you're like, honestly, I got like goosebumps when I heard it. Because, in yoga class, everybody just chants it together and the sound is done. And you might say like namaste. But this time, it didn't end. And it wasn't us.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a great way to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah.
Damn. See, this is a challenge for me. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of thinking about this stuff, trying to wrap my head around this stuff.
Well, I'm excited that just we haven't met, and hopefully someday we will. But just having a conversation with somebody, just really opens up your own self to something new. And I'm not just saying it's just about you, but I feel the same way about myself. Just you meet people through your life in the mountains or in life or wherever, and they teach you something, or they just open up your mind to something different.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of how we sort of grow and learn and develop.
Thank you so much for coming on today. This is awesome. Why don't you go ahead and plug, your social media, plug the Peaks and Poses stuff, and give some information so people can go check out your business and all that stuff.
Sure. You can find me at peaksandposes.com. That's my website, where I post a lot of my events and have a kind of a blog. You can follow me on Instagram, Peaks and Poses, or NR Wind, either one, preferably Peaks and Poses. I do not tweet, and I am Peaks and Poses also on Facebook. And I've got some really fun events. I actually have an event coming up at the Notch Hostel where I'm going to be cooking with people and showing people how to make a plant-based meal and dehydrate it so you can take it backpacking with you.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Good collaboration there.
Yeah, definitely. They're so awesome there. I love the Notch. I got to go back there soon as well.
You do, and maybe I'll see you there someday.
Definitely. I think that's going to do it. Nancy, thank you again. Everybody listening, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And Kyle, to end, I think we each have to say namaste to one another. I can tell you what it means.
Namaste. I can't even say it without. What does it mean, first of all?
Namaste. It means that the light inside of me shines on the light inside of you.
Namaste.
Yeah, namaste, Kyle.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And of course, to everybody listening, thank you so much, and namaste.